A food service business which represents about 35% of our group's profit, and it has very big aspirations to grow. And one of the things that we are considering at the moment is whether we give it its own lifeline and list it, so that we can capital raising will be a lot easier. Up until now, we haven't made any inroads in the United States, which is obviously a very costly market to go into, and capital markets are very, very good at the moment. So if you take all those factors together, I think that we have to consider a listing for the business, and that's what the board is going to do.
America is one of the markets you're not in while you're operating all over the world. People have been asking why. So are you saying this listing in London gets you closer to that US market?
Well, we've looked at the US before. It's very, very expensive. Obviously, the scale of the businesses in the US are much bigger than what we've been used to in all our other acquisitions. So, to go into the US, one needs a lot more money than we've currently got. And so we do need to have some kind of pot, I guess, if you want to call it that, in order for us to be able to launch some kind of activity in the US.
We have to talk about one of your acquisitions at home, Adcock Ingram, which is not huge in your bundle, but attracting a lot of publicity here. It's been speculated that you didn't know exactly how bad the problems were at Adcock, and now you've asked the tribunal for permission to take full ownership, but it looks like you're not willing to pay. So what is happening there?
It is a disappointment on our behalf that the information that was in the public domain at the time we bought our shares isn't quite what we found when we got in there. So, I mean, from that point of view, there is a disappointment. There's obviously a long road still to travel, and one will see how Adcock eventually turns out. We never asked the Competition Commission for approval to buy 50% of the business. What we did ask for was for us to get permission to gain control at some future time. Now, control doesn't necessarily mean buying shares. You could gain control by arrangement with other shareholders as well, which doesn't involve buying more shares. So I think that was a little bit of an anticipation of what the final outcome will be. And as I sit here today, I don't really know what the final outcome will be in relation to our strategy with regard to Adcock. But we don't have on the table right now the desire, until there's more clarity on what Adcock is eventually going to look like, to acquire and to make a general offer and to acquire more than 35%. But that may change. As I said, we didn't start the speculation, and I know there was some criticism levied against us for not reacting more quickly. But I mean, it's one day that effectively that this was in the market, and from our point of view, Bidvest had no obligation to make any announcement, but we did anyway.
It sounds like you feel a little duped by Adcock, and I guess generally acquisitions are difficult for companies. Bidvest has made it work, and has that been the Bidvest difference, that you go into companies and you know what you're buying?
I think that in most instances the realities, or sort of the information, is close to the reality. In this particular scenario, the information in the market wasn't as close to reality as maybe it could have been. But as I said, I mean, it's making acquisitions and making investments not 100% scientific. So sometimes you get them right, sometimes you get them wrong. In this particular case, we certainly have got it to some degree wrong. I mean, we've overpaid for the business, that's for sure. And in these results, we've obviously marked down the asset to market, which is a R1 billion write down, and from that point of view, we have to take that responsibility. But it's 1 billion out of 95 billion of market cap, and whilst I'm not proud of it, and hopefully we'll be able to get it back over time, it's just one of the realities. If you don't make any mistakes along the way, you're not going to make any good deals either.
Things are tough in South Africa, and a philosophical question, if you don't mind. You are involved in uplifting maths and science students, for instance, and I guess there seems to be a bit of distrust between business and government right now. And I'd like to know from your perspective, what is the role of business in South Africa right now?
Government is the facilitator, and business needs to be the deliverer. And one of the things that I think that in this trust relationship, there needs to be a will of government to facilitate, and there needs to be a will for companies in South Africa to deliver. I think if we want to be competitive over the next short while and into the future, education is a huge contributor to South Africa's efficiencies and effectiveness going forward. And I think Bidvest, from that point of view, has been making some investment. But as a large contributor to South Africa's activity, business activity, we obviously feel the need to make sure that South Africa has a sustainable future.
Finally, what are your own plans? Because you've hinted before that you may be looking at retirement, or are you having too much fun at the moment?
Well, I'm not a spring chicken. Obviously, I don't want to be one of those kinds of directors or managers that retires when it's too late. I think that one of the things that we've done, and I pride myself in starting that process, is succession, and a lot of the succession has already been done at Bidvest. I think when the time comes, I will go, and it's not. We're not talking about tens of years. As I said, I am 67, and also want to have a bit of fun sometimes.